Okay, but when do we get to like some kind of equilibrium historically?
Or that there is no equilibrium.
Yeah. But there's like,
That's one of the most common human fantasies, that there is stability.
Okay.
I'm gonna get better, and then I'll be stable. Nothing is ever stable.
Okay.
Everything is temporary, and equilibrium is dependent upon circumstances.
In the living room. Oh, yeah.
Hi, welcome to Life, History, and Everyday Bullshit. My name is Heddy Benatar, and this is my father-daughter podcast with my dad, Professor Doron Benatar. We talk a little bit about history related to current events, and then we get into some life advice. I actually got some feedback on our life advice from last week.
And did it transform someone's life?
Yes, it did. It transformed their life. So
Okay.
we continue
All right.
to change lives here. If you want to have your life changed, like last week's listener, and probably this week's, then you can submit some life advice questions on our website, which is bullshtick.com. Okay, Abba, let's get started. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm
I'm
good.
excited.
Oh, good. Me too. I'm doing good. I was listening to a chorus line today, which was really nice to listen to the music.
I love it. I simply love it. I mean,
What's new in your life?
I finished preparing the lecture on Lebensraum. It took me a few days. It's amazing how much I thought I knew about it and how much I had to learn.
Huh. Okay. 30 seconds. What is this thing?
Lebensraum. Lebensraum is the a belief that emerged in Germany in the early 20th century, that the Germans need living space, that they don't have enough living space, and therefore they need to expand primarily to the east and eliminate the people who were in the east, first the Jews, but then others as well. So it was something that was heavily subscribed to by Nazis. It became like a defining feature of Nazism and sort of an article of faith among many German conservatives, that Germany was, we have so many people, we don't have enough room because after World War I, the Treaty of Versailles cut Germany is too small and it was unfair. So it became one of those popular things. And so, it's related to the Holocaust, so I need to know it.
Yeah, because you're teaching a class on the Holocaust next semester.
Next year, yeah. So I bought a book for Ranan by Gillian Moore about a girl who has freckles.
Okay.
Because the book was banned by some library because it's supposedly DEI, and I thought it was ridiculous. It was considered to be too transgressive for some school board. So I decided to buy it.
Okay. Well, today I wanted to talk about something actually related to something that's clearly on your mind. I wanted to look at a lot of the moves that the Trump administration is doing related to like combating DEI. I wanted to look at it maybe not from a lens of like DEI, is it right? Is it wrong? Should we be combating it or not? But more so like what are the historical parallels to DEI?
I am so glad that you raised this subject, because I think in one of the previous podcasts, when we talked about the Trump administration, I said that one of the subjects that they are going after, which I agree with, is DEI, that I don't support DEI and so. But after 4 weeks of this, I am worried that this reasonable position against DEI is evolving into anti-Black racism. The firing of the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff midterm with no cause. You don't do it in the army like that. I am sure they're doing stupid things in the army. Who doesn't do stupid things in the army? But the way it's being weaponized right now is really alarming. It does remind me of another historical moment that was just like that.
Okay.
And the problem of how you can be critical of something and you join a group that's critical of something and suddenly you find yourself with a bunch of racists.
Okay.
And you didn't want that at all, so here, I'll give you an example, okay?
Okay.
One of the most inefficient ways in which the United States tried to integrate itself was through the practice of forced busing. So integrating kids, integrating schools seemed like the perfect answer. So the idea was, why are people racist? Because they don't know one another and they develop fears of the strange. We'll fight that by making them integrate. And we'll do it in the youngest possible age so that they will be, free of the prejudice that whatever. I mean, that was the idea behind it. And my sister always, who was a school principal, always said that it's totally unfair for society to put all its hopes on schools, that schools are supposed to teach and not to be the laboratory for making society, utopia. And so, but for a long time, it became the panacea that everybody was looking for. The problem is that there was white flight, and whites went to private schools, and as it was, blacks lived in cities and whites lived in the suburbs. So you could say that it's not the same educational unit. So integration of school, which was supposed to save America from its legacy of slavery and racism, was not happening. How were you going to so in order to remedy it, they start to bus kids of different races or colors or ethnicities, but mostly along racial lines, from some school to another, so they'll integrate.
Yes.
And the problem was that this generated a great deal of anger among white students and their parents, and was not very popular, by the way, for black parents, because they were not crazy about this kind of the long bus rides and so forth. But the establishment was married to busing. We were going to do busing, and there was this in Boston. There was this judge called Arthur Garrity, and he was making sure that black and white kids will go to integrated schools. Meanwhile, he lives in the suburbs, and his kids go to lily white schools. But whatever. And the sentiment against busing was very justified. It was wasteful. It created conflict. It turned children into guinea pigs. It destroyed communities, and it was incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
And instead of resources and efforts being allocated to education, it went into busing. So if you asked me, are you for forced busing? I would have said, no, I don't think it's a good idea. But then you say you're against forced busing, and suddenly you're with a group of all these people, and they don't want busing because of racist motives. I mean, and the same thing I feel is happening with DEI. That
interesting.
I think DEI is just not a good idea. It's just, it doesn't work right, and it allows for a lot of nonsense, like stupid workshops, but this is just, that's what it reminds me, is that you have some
interesting
liberal idea that is being adopted without much careful thought, forethought, like forced busing or DEI. It's a good idea, but the policy turns out, that it's counterproductive, and creates a lot of resentment. That's where we really fail in societies. We fail to discuss policies on their merit only.
Ooh.
In terms of, it all becomes part of, left, right, this position and that. Is it a good policy? Does it work?
We talked about the DEI part about racism, but is there something about like the feminist movement in America?
Well, we can't talk about the feminist movement because you have a similar dynamics with feminism. It's not only it's all liberation movements. It's all reform movements. Is that they start with a noble idea: equality between the sexes, equality between races, religions, and so forth. Everybody can subscribe to it. And then it removes all the obvious signs of the oppression.
So how did feminism do that?
Well, so all these kind of, women can't apply. They're only, women, these positions were closed to women. and so forth. This discussion of women could not be admitted to to the leading colleges. I mean, at Yale, only in the 70s they
Wow.
allowed women in, and so forth. So it starts with this quite obvious storming through the barricades that are sort of obvious, and then you reach your goal, which is, okay, you're at Yale, or these jobs do not say women should not apply. And you realize that the obvious barricades that you overcame were not the most fundamental ones to
Interesting.
maintaining the oppression. And so there are all these sort of cultural norms that different groups in different societies subscribe to, and that these obvious barricades of, whites only, or no women, or no Jews, these obvious barricades are just an expression of something that's much more profound. Whereas you thought, I would just be able to, get rid of that, everything will be easy. And you discover that it's just much more complicated. So, and so then you start trying to knock down those obstacles, but they're not as obvious. You're not so sure what is it. It's all so complicated because the goal is absolutely worthy, right? But how do you do it? And society, it's like a pump, like the way the heart is a pump. It just, it tries something and then it sees that it really didn't accomplish anything and actually just spent a lot of money and made things worse. And then sort of it retreats. And when it retreats, after a while, it realizes things are not good. So that, this thing about DEI is just the most recent chapter of this circle of trying to find policies that would remedy the inequality and injustice, and then forming policies that don't work.
Okay, but when do we get to like some kind of equilibrium historically? And what I think you just said is, we haven't gotten to the equilibrium historically. We're not there. And so maybe that's an interesting point, is it's like a constant seesaw back and forth, or maybe this is the equilibrium. I don't know.
Or that there is no equilibrium.
Yeah. But there's like...
That's one of the most common human fantasies, that there is stability. I'm going to get better, and then I'll be stable. Nothing is ever stable.
Okay.
Everything is temporary, and equilibrium is dependent upon circumstances. And it's a seesaw of liberation movement. There's always something challenging the equilibrium. Even if you think you're achieving equilibrium, there's always something coming from out of left field that is going to knock it out.
Okay. So with that, we're going to take a break and we'll come back with some life advice. If you're enjoying this podcast, then feel free to subscribe or comment and share it with your friends. We're back. I'm going to ask you a life advice question. This was actually submitted through our website, bullshnick.com. Here is the life advice question. I share a life with a husband who absolutely loves me and our child. But with all of that love, there is a nurturing aspect that is missing. If I were to stop doing all that I do to make our home and marriage run, things would fall apart. He doesn't seem to know how to look around and notice what needs doing, and doesn't seem to feel the need to even try or be curious. How do you navigate a relationship with someone who isn't sharing in the mental load of your life together? And when you point it out, even gently, they shut it down and act as though you are the one who is wrong for pointing it out. Abba, what do you...
So I think a few things. First of all, I think it sucks that the husband doesn't share in the marriage in a way that he should. And I look at it, there are a few ways to go about it. Okay, first way, which is the preferred way, in my opinion, is to spend money. It's not fair the way the household chores go. It's really not fair. And on the other hand, the guy gets defensive. And if you want to stay in the marriage, you cannot become a nag. And it's very possible that the guy doesn't care about things running smooth because whatever. If there's no food on the table, he'll, go buy fast food. If there is it's so. And since he gets resentful, so that's obviously not a good strategy to talk to him about it. So if you have the money, then that's the thing to do. A couple with one child, one young child, usually doesn't have the money. And then it gets really tricky. You can try to divide chores, like things like I cook dinner on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and stuff like this, and you do Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. But that doesn't work. It's, that lasts, 3 days, and then, you go out one day, you cook, on your day, you need to cook, we eat the leftovers from there, it doesn't work. All things have to do with the child are out of the equation immediately. Somebody needs to do it, and
Right.
there's no the child. If he doesn't notice that the kids need to eat, and the kids are falling apart, you got to give the kids food. So everything to do with the kid is out of the equation, which really doesn't leave our listener a lot of options. I mean, marriage therapy could make some difference. Again, it costs money. She's not going to be able to change him. Will he be kinder a little bit? Yes, he can be. Will he grow up and learn to appreciate his spouse? Hopefully. I mean, I think so. But really, this fantasy that you can change them. No, you're not going to change them. And so money is the solution. And even though it will seem to you as a unnecessary splurge and you're tight, I think it's very important to buy time and freedom for yourself, and that it's just as important as anything in your life, because these resentments build up. They build up. Anyway, unjustified resentments build up in marriage. Anyway, we all have resentments that some of them are not fair and justified. And this one seems to be, would be a very fair and justified resentment. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting because I thought, my first instinct is like, they should talk about it. They need to talk about what's going on, and they should think about a way to divide up chores or something like that. But you're saying, no, don't talk about it. Men don't change.
No, they tried already. Women don't change either. Okay. Nobody changes.
Okay. Nobody changes. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's true. Yeah, so my first instinct was you got to talk about it, but I guess that's not quite it. There's this book these days. I don't know if you've heard about this. I don't know if it's a book or a card game or something, where they've written out all of the cards that include the mental load of parenting, and you're supposed to go through it with your spouse and divide out cards of who does what to show who has the mental load. So women love it.
Right. I assume they try to talk, right? It's not that she's not. I mean, of course, it's if everybody in the world should do is the first time they have any question before they talk to their partner, they should write us.
Absolutely.
Which
the key to success.
That's the key to happiness. And by the way, I want to point out to you, Heddy, that we have 100% record of success.
100%.
All our listeners are incredibly happy. What do you think of my idea of money?
I think it's right. I think you're right. And I think everyone spends money on something. And so you might as well spend money on this, and also
on yourself. Absolutely. On yourself.
And you'll find a way. You'll find a way to make up that money somehow.
No, the money is unimportant. When you are married and have a child, this is life. You don't save money for next. Next is afterlife. This is what you live for. This is your life. If you feel overwhelmed and you don't have help, you have to say, I'm going to treat myself, whether it is a massage or a bike tour or whatever it is, or a yoga class.
Yeah.
You have to do it because there's no life after.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the idea of having some way to help with paying someone to do something, whether it's cooking or cleaning or laundry or whatever, can make a very big difference.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Here's my last question on this thought, though.
Yeah.
One thing I find on the Instagram mom sphere, which I'm not really on right now, but it's like, all these moms kind of complain about their husbands, but the husbands like see themselves as like feminists, right there by their wives. And the wives don't see their husband as feminists or standing up for them or right there next to them. I don't know what that is. I don't know if you have a commentary on that or on millennials.
I don't know about millennials. I grew up in the 70s, and from the first time I moved in with a woman, I looked at her and she looked at me, and it was clear that she's not going to clean after me or cook for me, that we'll have to do it together. And I remember that we were cleaning the apartment, and my mother came. And she actually was unhappy that I was like washing the floors, that it was not I'm not behaving in a manly manner or something like this. But, if you grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, you realize that you are an equal and you have to do an equal share, and everything was equal. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it was from my home. I think it was from my peer group.
From society.
But then again, I look at some of my friends, and some of them actually lived in traditional households. When I think about it in retrospect. I mean, it's not that the women didn't work, but the women's career was, was secondary, or she did more of the kids. In our case, it was different because my academic schedule allowed me to be flexible about driving kids to things. So, and mom could not. But I would say that I was maybe one or two dads at the Ezra parking lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I believe it.
And I enjoyed it very much.
Sure. But what about, what is going on that these men think that they're being feminists, or they think they're in tune, but they're not? Do you think men of your generation also thought they were, or?
So it made me think about us. It made me think about me, whether I was as wonderful as I thought of myself. And the answer is probably no. But it's even more shocking to me that millennials who grew up in homes where men did, a lot, 50, 45, whatever, a lot, are behaving like my dad. I mean, I can't figure it out. I mean, I don't even know where they saw it. And even more upsetting to me is that their partners tolerate it. I mean, Noga did not tolerate it for a split second.
Mm-hmm.
She put me in my place immediately. When I got to mom, I was well trained.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Interesting. That the women are tolerating it, and the men they don't even see necessarily what the same thing women are seeing.
I don't know. I really don't know.
But you wouldn't say millennial men, from your perspective, are more feminist than your generation. Yeah. Okay.
No.
Or take on more duties in the house or housework.
No. I'm sure that in terms of ideology or gender ideology, they're much more feminist than us. They probably are so advanced. But in terms of household chores, and I can't, of course, speak about too many, but from what I see, I mean, I find it shocking. I really don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
It's so unlike what we were expected to do.
If you understand why millennial men think they're feminists but don't take on as many household chores, please let us know in the comments.
Absolutely. Oh, that would be really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, Abba. That's all I wanted to discuss for today. Thank you very much. Have a great night. This podcast was edited and produced by me, Heddy Benatar. If you liked what you were hearing, please subscribe and like and comment to our podcast.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.